Putin's army pummeling Ukraine, a major explosion rocking Ukraine's second largest city, Kyiv, overnight as a missile strike reportedly hitting a government building in an apparent assassination attempt. Let's bring in now our foreign correspondent, Chuck Holton, live for us on the ground in Ukraine. Chuck, we're also just learning this from a U.S. official, the Pentagon believing Russia has used more than 80% of its pre-staged combat power, and the attack on Kyiv has not made any advances in the last 24 hours. What are you hearing?
That's right. You might wonder why that large convoy that they're talking about coming down from the north has not really moved much in the last 24 hours. And they believe here that the answer to that lies in their logistics supply train. That is the food and fuel and ammunition that keeps an armored column running. We're finding out that well, first of all, the Ukrainians have been focusing on destroying those logistics trains. We've gotten several videos from the Ukrainian ministry about of them using drones to take out those supply trains. And they're also finding out that the soldiers are really a little confused. They were not very well led into this. We just heard a few moments ago that it's been broken by a local journalist that some of the Russian troops are actually using FRS radios and cell phones to communicate with each other because they don't have military radios that will communicate back to the rear where their command is. And so they're not really sure what they're supposed to do. Many of the Russian troops that have been captured are saying that they were never even told that they were invading Ukraine until the last minute. They had their cell phones taken away, and they were given ammunition and told that they were doing training missions, and then found out they were invading Ukraine. They don't want to be here. Morale is very low among those troops from what we're told. And so that's part of the reason why the Ukrainians have done so well so far.
Yeah, you know, Chuck, breaking just in the last hour, there had been reports coming in, local reports of Russia attempting to destroy the TV tower in Kyiv as well. Of course, a source of information for residents who would remain in Ukraine. Perhaps the explosions are taking place nearby, but that was the sentiment online on social media. Some of the reports, again, attempting to destroy the TV tower. What have you heard?
That's right. They have been working hard to try to jam communications because they didn't do a very good job at that either in the first 72 hours of the campaign. And the Ukrainians have been cleaning their clocks when it comes to the media battle space. They set up a hotline for Russian mothers to call to ask about the status of their soldier sons. And the people that they're talking to are actually Ukrainian police and soldiers, women, who listen to their stories, glean a whole bunch of intelligence off of those stories about troop movements and dispositions, and then they use the recordings of those stories to put out on social media to show that these people did not want to fight, they were forced into this, and that their morale is very low. So Ukraine's been doing a great job on that. But we also see weakness in Russia's cracks in their strategy because they are getting much more destructive in their tactics. Instead of just rolling into town and taking over cities, now they're having to destroy large parts of cities, even going so far as to use what they call a thermobaric bomb, or what we call in the United States a fuel-air explosive. It's probably one of the most powerful bombs apart from a nuclear bomb. The United States used those to go after the Taliban in the mountains of Afghanistan back at the beginning of the war. And what they do to human beings is absolutely horrific. And they are dropping those now on civilian areas, which shows that they are losing in the kinetic war as well.
Well, whether it's bad intention or bad aim, the most powerful images this morning, Kyiv, where there were around 70 casualties, we understand, civilian. And French President Macron spoke with Putin yesterday, and Putin told Macron, we're not aiming for civilians, but here we're seeing a lot, dozens of civilians just in Kyiv alone. That was devastating, Chuck.
That's right. If they're not aiming at civilians, then what it tells us is that their capabilities are very low when it comes to precision fires. Their precision fires are not very precise, and it shows the lack of training and a lack of discipline among their troops. And so, like I say, there's all of these sort of factors that we're seeing in the Russian advance that is telling us that Ukraine actually has a fighting chance in this war. Back to you.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for all the updates and your great reporting. Chuck Holton live for us in Ukraine. Chuck, stay safe. Thank you very much.